Monday's mass shooting in Louisville brings back painful memories of the workplace shooting at Standard Gravure back in 1989.
A former employee at that printing plant in Louisville killed 8 people with an AK-47. Then Mayor Jerry Abramson rushed to the scene to help after the attack. He wrote this opinion article in the Washington Post about the shooting, calling for the U.S. to ban assault-style guns. There's the article there. Now, more than 30 years later, we're having those same conversations after a shooter used an AR-15 to kill 5 people at a downtown Louisville bank.
Former Mayor Jerry Abramson joins us now, and thanks for being here. We appreciate it. And before we start asking you some questions, we want to first look at this article that you wrote so many years ago. Standard Gravure is considered one of the first recorded mass shootings in U.S. history. This is what you wrote following that. I never thought it would happen in my city. It is deeply disturbing to realize that it is not an isolated incident that can happen anywhere.
You then went on to say, we must act now because the use of assault weapons to commit violent criminal acts is increasing at an alarming rate. So you called for lawmakers to ban those weapons. I would imagine what happened here in a city that affectionately calls you mayor for life has got to hurt in a lot of ways.
You know, it really does hurt. What really hurts is that was 33, 34 years ago when that happened. And we walked away from a mass shooting. That term wasn't even a part of the lexicon at that point in this country. We were one of the first workplace violent acts of mass shooting. And as I was pulling bodies out, literally with my deputy mayor, Bill Summers, to see what an assault weapon can do to a human being's body, you certainly understand why they're used for war, not used as a domestic weapon. It shouldn't be in the United States. So we walked away 33, 34 years ago talking about 2 things. 1, why are there assault weapons on the streets of America? And 2, mental health. The issue of mental health came up with Mr. Westbecker, who had gone through great difficulties in his own life and was under the care of psychiatric assistance. And we talked a lot about both of those issues. Here we are 33 years later, and guess what? We're talking about the same issues. Congress and the president banned the sale of assault weapons for 10 years under the crime bill in 1993. I was president of the U.S. Conference of Mayors at that time, and we worked with Congress to bring about that change with our police officers, because the officers were being outgunned on the streets of their cities. But they banned it for a 10-year period with a sunset clause. What ultimately happened was during that 10-year, there was a significant decrease in the number of mass shootings in America. What a surprise. So at that point, you go back and say, okay, you've done it for 10 years. You see it really makes a difference in the quality of life and in the crime rate in cities across this country. Please expand it. And they did not extend it. And as a result, here we are today.
You were lieutenant governor. You worked for the White House. What changes do you think need to be done now to reduce this type of violence?
Well, I think it's the same 2 things I talked about in the Washington Post op-ed. 1, we need to ban the sale of assault weapons. Nobody goes out to shoot a deer with an assault weapon. Nobody goes out for sport to shoot a rabbit with an assault weapon. Assault weapons are weapons of war. When I was in the military, AK-47s, AR-15s now, those were used in the war setting on a battlefield. And the second is understanding mental health, financially supporting mental health, so that there's more opportunities for families with situations to be able to literally bring about a change. If we had a red flag law in this state, where the mom and dad of the shooter the other day could have called a judge and said, we have an individual, our son, he's having these problems, we would request you to issue an order to take any and all weapons away from him. That's what the red flag law is. We don't have one of those. If we could, when I was mayor, when we would pick up a weapon from a robbery or a murder scene, after the end of the year when all the evidence was used and the court proceeding was over, we would melt down those weapons. Frankfurt, the state legislature, changed the law. And now they auction them off, which means that AR-15 that was used in the tragedy of several days ago will at some point in time be auctioned off and sold back to be used again on the streets somewhere in the state of Kentucky.
Well, Mayor, I know you're hurting, as we all are. Thank you for taking the time and talking about this with us.
Good to be with you. Thanks so much.